You're listening to Stimulus Tech Talk, a conversation-based podcast created by Stimulus Technologies that covers a range of topics related to business and technology.
Welcome to Stimulus Tech Talk. I'm Sherry Lip, the marketing manager at Stimulus Technologies, and today we are going to be diving into a topic that relates to employees and owners alike, and that is burnout. And we are going to be talking about how automation and AI tools can help you avoid burnout and get a more motivated staff and attitude. So I'm joined by Stimulus Technology CEO Nathan Whitaker, who is an expert on technology and optimizing your business. Welcome, Nathan.
Well, thanks, Sherry. And, we do this podcast every week, and one of my cousins listens to this often. He's been in government for a long time and enjoys listening about technology and how to improve things. And he told me, though, that we're rather dry. We need to tell more jokes. So this is for Dan. We're going to tell a couple of jokes to start out. So what I think we've done this before a couple of times. What we have the conversation about is hot dog a sandwich, and we discussed that. But I love bad dad jokes, so I got a couple of bad dad jokes for you, Sherry. You ready?
All right.
All right.
I'm ready.
So how do robots organize their parties?
How?
Because they automate the invitations. That one's not that funny. I think it's funny because you have to say it with a straight face, right?
Yeah.
All right. One more. Why was the computer cold?
Why?
Because it left its windows open.
Yeah.
They're called bad dad jokes for a reason. All right, there you go, Dan. Got your jokes for the day. Hopefully you find them funny. Or us just trying to tell them funny. I don't know.
Now he's going to write and be like, don't do the jokes.
Yeah, the comment should be, should we do the jokes or should we not do the jokes?
Yes, leave a comment and tell us about if we should do the jokes or not.
My wife laughs at me every once in a while. I'll pull up some YouTube reels and just watch a couple of them, and because it knows what I like. There's a couple of comedians that are usually on there, and then there's it's called Doc Talk, and it's bad dad jokes. And the eye rolling I get from my wife from those jokes is incredible. I think it's like marbles hitting the back of her head. It's like, and I'm just laughing. I think they're funny. So,
yeah, it's an art.
yes. Automation.
Yes, automation. Well, this is the last podcast we're recording this year, which is why Nathan is wearing a reindeer shirt. And I'm wearing a green sweater. That's about as good as I could get today for the holidays. But it's our last episode recording this year. And so we're going to have some fun with it, talking about automation. We know we've talked about employee burnout and tools before, but it was over a year ago, and there are so many more tools out there. So, Nathan, what do you see, maybe in the workplace or from talking to other business owners? What is the cause these days of employee burnout?
I think a lot of employees will claim and say in surveys that it's what we call digital debt, that they have a certain job that they're hired to do. They're hired in the accounting department to do accounts payable or accounts receivable, or they're hired to be a computer programmer or a service technician or a field, engineer, whatever it may be. They're hired for a specific job. But employees often find that they're spending a large amount of their time, over 50% for some positions, just handling things like responding to emails or doing research or taking phone calls, being in meetings. I mean, there's just so much ancillary work that goes into jobs that employees feel very overwhelmed because they feel like there's a very small amount of time that they're investing in actually getting the real work, quote unquote, that were hired to do done. And employees want to be successful in their job. They want to learn and grow in their position. They want to do great work. They want to help the company move forward. And I think employees get frustrated because they're just burdened by meetings or emails that come in, text messages, Teams messages, Slack messages, whatever you're using. And there's this desire for immediate response on different things, and it just becomes overwhelming because of that digital debt that they incur throughout the day. And if you've ever taken a vacation, you know the feeling. Like, I'm going on vacation, I'm going to shut off my email, I'm going to shut off my notifications, let everybody know I'm gone. But to get to that point that I feel comfortable leaving, there's a ton more work that I got to do because I want to get caught up on what was outstanding. And then when you get back, you're like, oh my gosh, the night before you get back from vacation, you're thinking of all these things that you now have to do immediately because you didn't get them done while you were out. And so I think, especially in the United States, people are taking time off less and less because the digital debt does not go away. I get back from vacation and I might have several thousand emails in my mailbox if I haven't looked at it for a while. And 90% of them I don't have to do anything about. They just, are notifications of things that were going on in the business, or communication from vendors, salespeople, there's marketing mail, spam, whatever it may be that's sitting in the mailbox, but it just takes time to clear it out. And that's all employees are feeling that way. And that's that digital debt that we need to get rid of, that we've created in the last 25 years as we've implemented new technologies. Now we need to figure out how to get rid of that or minimize it.
Is there a tool? So, obviously we can sort our inbox into different, we can sort it so it goes into separate folders and stuff like that. But even that gets overwhelming. So what tool comes to mind for you? Is there a tool that helps actually go through and see what you need to see?
I think that's what Microsoft is trying to implement with Microsoft Copilot for Outlook, is allowing an automated assistant, to go in there and prioritize the emails and flag the ones that are most important. So I think right now the one that we're seeing being a time saver is Copilot, because it integrates with the Microsoft tool set immediately. So that's one. That's their advertised platform. And we have a few employees at Stimulus that are using it, and clients that are using it, and they're seeing the benefits of that. It's a virtual assistant, that's built in, that's going to automate some of those tasks. So that would be my recommendation for that type of digital debt. The other nice thing is it can attend Teams meetings and summarize those. So if you have conflicting meetings and maybe you just need to know what happened in the meeting, you don't need to provide input, it will do that type of work too, and hopefully reduce the number of meetings that you're just attending to be a fly on the wall, which I think a lot of us do that too, is we just are invited to a meeting because you kind of need to know the outcome of it. And these automated tools, whether it's Copilot or Firefly or one of these AI tools, I think can do a really good job of summarizing and providing key highlights to what happens in these digital meetings, and really save some time. So those are two key points that I think are helping a lot in that debt.
Yeah, I've been to a few Zoom meetings where somebody's bot is coming in their place, but they just name it their name, so you can't actually tell. So I do advise naming your bot something that lets people know it's not actually you, so you're not talking to no one. But I just think they have their camera off. What other kinds of tasks do you think can be automated, maybe with Copilot or another tool, where it can really help employees focus on the core of their job instead of tasks that just take a lot of time?
Well, we've been doing it for years with computers, is improving automation through technology. And so the biggest target I think any company should have is things that occur repetitively, that really don't need human interaction, or potentially mild human interaction that can be handled with AI. to take that burden off. So, maybe you have, I mentioned accounting a minute ago, you have like an accounts receivable process that, a human is sending out invoices, is, running credit cards, doing bank reconciliations, whatever it may be that are happening constantly inside your organization. The question is how to automate those type of tasks so that they happen automatically without human interaction. And then if there is a error or a problem, then that's when a human gets involved to resolve that. And so what we want to do is look at ways to improve uh, that work and automate those processes that are I mean, low hanging fruit, those repetitive tasks. And once we do that, then we can focus on maybe even improving the interactions with those automated tasks with AI, so that AI can handle through its large language model interpretation of communication back from clients, and then have additional workflows inside your organization depending on how a client responds. So there's really anything that is repetitive is maybe easily automated, and that's what we need to look at is those repetitive tasks.
Yeah, this is kind of a two-part question. What can business owners do to help their employees understand that this is a tool and not something to replace them?
That's a we talked a little bit about it on this podcast, and I think it's the tough question that employees and owners need to answer. Is if I'm going to automate something that an employee is doing today, how do I ensure that that employee is still viable inside the organization, and help them feel comfortable that they're viable and productive? And I think it requires us as owners of the organization and as employees to make sure that we are experts in what we do, because we have to train these AI models or automation models if it's just straight up automation. Um, and and if there's exceptions to the training or to the rules, then it has to go to an expert to resolve those. And so if your skill set is just moving widgets back and forth, and that's all you can do, but you don't understand how that widget works or how that whole process works, then yeah, you're probably going to be automated out of a job. Just like going from manual assembly lines in manufacturing that we did, manufacturing cars or whatever it may be, in the last 100 years, we moved to robots handling all that automation. um, but there's still tons of factory workers at those locations. They have to, be involved in the whole process, or managing that entire system. And I think it's the same thing in our knowledge work, uh, as administrative work or in our organizations, that it requires us to have more expertise. And so as owners, that's what we have to discuss with our employees, is say, we are going to automate some of these tasks. As we automate these tasks, we're going to reduce your workload, your digital debt, these things that keep you busy all day. But we want you to upskill. We want you to get new skills and be better at what you're doing, so that you can focus on the things that bring you enjoyment in your work, and you can feel more productive. And so that's the type of discussion I think we need to be having. So
Yeah, and so on the flip side, employees who are worried about their job, if somebody comes to you and is like, "I'm very worried that we're automating these things that I do." What kind of advice do you give them?
So the advice I've given is, let's find out what you really enjoy doing, what your career path is, and how can we provide you the skills necessary to move along that career path. It might be sending you out for additional training or certifications. It might be, a new position inside the company. But I think it has to be communication across the board of, this is where the company's going. These are the areas that we need help in, and how can we get the team members that are the right right people and for the organization in those seats.
And so, how, working together, how can employers involve their employees in those decisions of what kind of tools to use?
Well, I've been talking a lot with organizations about technology implementation lifecycle. And before choosing a tool, you have to have a problem to solve and a clearly identified problem. I think a lot of organizations make mistakes on technology implementation in general by chasing after the latest thing, latest new tool, latest new technology, latest thing that they heard from their friends or online, and trying to implement that without having a specific need that they're working to resolve. And so, looking at the entire organization and getting feedback from all your team members across your company of things that they struggle with or things that could be automated or made better. And you got to identify those problems first and then define what the best outcome would look like. So again, if, going back to that accounting procedure that I was mentioning in the beginning, if you have, a process that's very manual, then what does the outcome look like? Our goals are invoices are sent out automatically without any human interaction. Credit cards are automatically charged without human interaction for those invoices. There's an automated response if a client, calls in or emails in with any questions. And then if there's additional questions, it gets routed to the right person. So defining what the exact outcome should be, then you go out and look for a tool that can help you implement that. And then there's a whole life cycle of implementing that new technology and making sure it works inside the organization. But you have to define the problem first, and then define what the priorities and outcome are before you just go buy a tool or a product.
And when you start using these tools, how do you measure the success of it?
Hopefully not with a yardstick, or maybe, um, or a meter stick if you're in the UK or in Europe or elsewhere. So you look at ROI, you look at time savings, and looking at there should be for each tool or each area a specific key performance indicator that should improve by implementing that type of automation. And those should be defined in the beginning too. What KPIs do we look at, and what is our expected outcome or improvement? So if you're implementing a new process in accounting and accounts receivable, maybe your days of outstanding receivables should reduce. Maybe you have 25 days of outstanding receivables. Maybe you want that to reduce down to 15 days by a new automation process. So that's what you'd be looking at, is what's the KPI for that exact work process, and what are the expected outcomes, and then you can decide if the ROI was there based off of the achievement of those outcomes.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about how stimulus helps businesses, because I think part of the problem, automation, AI are just new tools. Sometimes businesses dump a new thing on the employees and there's not a lot of training or what's going on, and people don't know how to use it, and it's just a big problem. And people don't get excited about it. So, we have a program we could talk about a little bit about how, we implement Copilot in businesses, and how that helps employees get involved. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's a great segue, because a lot of companies will buy a new tool or technology and then not invest in the training or defining what the workflow is. And that's where a lot of issues come up, is the employees will revert back to the way that they did it before without sufficient training and follow-up training and retraining. And so with these AI tools especially, I think it's a new way of operating. And so your employees have never ran into this before. They're not getting this AI experience from another job that they've had in the past. And so it's on us now as organizations to help employees implement these new technologies. So We've developed this AI Masterclass that is a stimulus ran class. We provide training for about 30 minutes a week, and then there is 30 minutes of Q&A in the class that the team members that are part of this group can ask questions if they're having any issues on Copilot across the board. And in the class, they can learn from each other about, oh, I didn't know that you can use it for this problem, and then they learn from that. And so we make it as interactive as possible. There's also a Microsoft Teams chat that's ongoing that people can ask questions throughout the week, and those can be answered, in the class. Our engineers can prep for those questions. So that's what we're doing. And I think whether you're implementing a technology inside your organization with a vendor or just by yourself, having a group of people that are a class or a workforce or a team that's working on that implementation, that are meeting regularly, that are resolving problems, and defining those workflow processes, and then achieving those outcomes is essential. You can't just put a new piece of software on everybody's computer and expect them to work on it just fine the next day. It's time to implement, time to define those procedures, written procedures, and training on those over and over again, and that's when they stick.
And final thoughts on this. If an employer, from the standpoint of helping employees, of getting the best tools for their employees, where do you think a business owner should start?
It's, again, going back to the problem that you're having, and then you could talk to your technology provider of saying, this is a problem I'm having inside my organization. What suggestions do you have on implementing these or solving this problem? That's what Stimulus is here as a resource, and that's what any good technology company should be doing, is being that resource to bounce ideas off of and help solve these problems inside the organization. So that's really the first start, is doing the research in the back end of how the problem can be resolved, and then coming up with a set of choices and then choosing those outcomes. We're really excited at Stimulus. Some of our goals are to help, or for 2025, is to come up with new ideas and new tools that we can help companies implement, especially around AI and automation for 2025. So be on the lookout for some new things coming from Stimulus. And we're working with internally and externally on getting feedback on what companies, especially small businesses, need today to implement to help improve their automation across their entire organization. So be on the lookout. We're excited about plans for 2025.
Yes, definitely. And if you guys are using tools, anybody listening, you have some favorite tools, let us know in the comments, or let us know if you have questions. But thanks everybody for listening, and thanks, Nathan.
Now, thank you, Sherry, and thank everybody for joining us on this podcast. Please make sure you like and subscribe, leave some comments, and we look forward to a great 2025.